Hey, good morning, everybody. I know nobody's done that, right? Nobody has ever done that. You all are too good of people. Today is Sunday, so Bed Blood, our message series, is continuing today. It's going to be a great day. My name is Ryan. Welcome to Lifehouse. If you're here in the room, good to see you. If you're streaming with us online from wherever you're at, we're really glad that you guys are with us. We want to give a special welcome to anybody that's here in the room or online with us for the first time. It's a really big deal to us that you made the decision to spend a little time with us today. So thanks for being here. If you're here in the room and if you would like to connect with us, if you are new, it's your first or second time, you got some questions about Lifehouse, we'd love to connect with you, get you a free gift, just as our way of saying thanks for being with us and answer any questions that you have. All you need to do, if you're in the room, is scan the QR code on the front of your seat. So in front of you, just get your phones out, scan that QR code. We don't want anything from you. We just want the chance to connect with you if you're ready for that. So you can do that if you're online. Just click the link in the chat box, and it'll take you to the same place. But hey, even if you're not new, we're really glad that you're here today. This is Jamie, Joanne, and Allison. We want to invite you guys to stand and sing with us as we start today. Let's roll. Just one word, you calm the storm that surrounds me. Just one word, the darkness has to retreat. Just one touch, I feel the presence of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes were open to see. My heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can do. There's not a mountain that He can move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can do. Just one word, you heal what's broken inside me. Just one word, and you revive every dream. Just one touch, I feel the power of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes were open to see. My heart can't help but believe. Oh, there's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, there's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, there's not a prison wall He can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, yeah. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Oh, let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like His power. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can't move.
all these pieces broken and scattered, in mercy gathered, mended and whole, empty-handed but not forsaken. I've been set free, I've been set free. Take our failures, you take our weakness, you set your treasure in jars of clay. So take this heart, Lord, I'll be your vessel, the world to see your life in me. Oh, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. Oh, I can see the love in your eyes, laying your
so good to sing that song with you all. And we hope this morning somehow you feel God's amazing grace, which simply means his love for you when you deserve it and when you don't deserve it. Because many of us have found we don't deserve God's love, but he just keeps giving it to us over and over again. Thanks for singing along. You all may be seated. My name is Matt, and I am the lead pastor here at Lifehouse. And it's so good to have you all here, and all of you. Boy, we're about ready to put out more chairs. There's so many of you showing up, which is super exciting for me. And we are in this really exciting season. We've been calling it Be Rich for the last several years. And if you're new around here, whether you're online or you're in the room, Be Rich is our way once a year to do what we want to do all year long, of loving people outside our church walls and our community. And so every year, Be Rich season in the fall, we try and figure that out. And this year, like last year, we did this event called For the Students, where we, with the help of the local schools, found over 100 students from 4th to 8th grade that just had some needs of shoes, socks, and coats, and other things. And you all raised a whole bunch of money. And last Saturday, or a week ago Saturday, we sent a shopping spree of over 100 kids with 100 of you adults, and it was the most amazing thing. And stories have rolled in, and tears have been shared, and it just feels like God's doing this really cool work in our church and our community. And just to give you all a quick glimpse of that, turn your attentions towards the screen and watch this cool video.
I'm most excited about this event to see just how it actually impacts the community and each individual school. My favorite part of the entire process is just seeing how many people actually volunteer, how many people come out, and hearing Matt, each week report as to how many people we have versus how many we need, and just the overwhelming support that everybody gives out.
I love the fact that we're able to give back to the community. These kids have so many needs, and getting to know them, it's my second year, and it's been such a blessing. Like, I look forward to this day now, second year in a row, so it's amazing.
For me, I feel very fulfilled and blessed. My girl picked out the cutest things, and we just have fun. It was a lot of fun to do this for her and for myself, and seeing her talking to her parents when we came back and telling them how much fun she had. That was amazing. It's really good. I encourage anyone to do it next year.
We have said around here for years that the best way to live your life is to give it away. And last Saturday, we just got a glimpse of that. And as the day rolled on, we started to hear stories come in of students who were so delighted just not only to get something new or lots of things new, but also to spend time with some of the adults from our church. We heard stories from the teachers of the schools as these children walked into their classes on Monday morning in their brand new outfits and their new boots and their new overhauls, and they were so excited and so proud. In fact, we did a survey with all of our volunteers, and we literally got a manifesto of pages of responses from the people that volunteered. And I would love to read you all 100 responses, because it feels like that's about how many we've got. I don't have time for that, but I want to share one quick story of one of our volunteer females who took a little girl shopping. And she said the girl was pretty quiet until after lunch, and then she started to talk. And happens sometimes with kids. They don't say anything. And then once they start talking, they never stop. And she talked and talked and talked. And she was just so glad someone was listening. And she talked about her two older brothers and that her family didn't have a lot of resources. And so most of the time, this little girl ended up having to wear her older brother's hand-me-downs that didn't look quite like what maybe she would want to wear, didn't fit quite right. And she said to the volunteer from our church, she said, when I walk into a room, I always feel like people are talking about me because I'm not wearing the right things and I don't look the right way and I don't feel real good about it. Of course, our volunteer, because she's amazing from our church, was so pumped. So they got a shopping cart and they started finding things that she wanted and her preferences. And they started throwing in stuff left and right. And her face was lighting up because she'd never got to do this before. And then she said, what's the one thing you want over anything else? This little girl said, I want a pair of overalls. That was her big request. And I guess that's in style again. I didn't know that. I want a pair of overalls. So they marched down to Maurice's and it was like God provided, because there was one pair of overalls left at Maurice's that fit her just perfectly. She put them on, wore them to school Monday morning, and she was just so lit up. And she said, the volunteer said, this little girl said thank you and was polite, carried her things. She was grateful. It was just this beautiful thing. But the volunteer's response in this interaction is the thing I wanted to read you specifically. So I had to go to the glasses for this. The volunteer said at the end of the day, she said, this was the absolute most rewarding thing I've done in a long time. Let me read that again. This was the absolute most rewarding thing I've done in a long time. This is what I asked myself, and you can play along if you want, but I asked myself this. Matt, what's the most rewarding thing you've done in a long time? And usually for me, when I think about the most rewarding thing that I've done, it involves getting to play golf or getting to do something I want or going on vacation, but it pales into comparison to this incredible volunteer's most rewarding thing. I'll read you the rest. This was the most rewarding thing I've done in a long time. I grew up and my family did not have a lot of money or clothes, and one summer, for me, a church did this for me and my siblings. I personally know what it's like to be in her shoes. It's been 20 years since that summer, and it's something that I still remember. For the students, it's something that this 10-year-old girl will remember and look back on and know that she was loved from strangers at this point for the rest of her life. And when I read that, I thought, that's incredible, because part of our faith, we are called to remember. We are called to remember what Jesus did for us when he gave everything for us. That's why whenever you take the Lord's Supper or communion, we are called to remember. And this adult remembers 20 years ago when someone else did this for her, and it just brought back that gratefulness of God's people and God showing up in her life. And this is why we decide we have to figure out how to be rich throughout the year, because when we're rich to other people in generous deeds and good actions and in love, it reminds us of our Savior. And I'm just so grateful for all that has gone into this. So if you're new, I just want to do a quick recap of what happened around for the students. We had a plan for the students. We took 107 students shopping, which is a gob of students. And I will say the logistics was crazy, but our incredible staff, and specifically our ministry services director, Tina Brown, just nailed this, putting it together in great detail. We took them for a shopping day, 4th through 8th graders from the 3 county schools. We said we're going to provide $175 per student, which meant, and this is always the challenge, we needed to raise $25,000. And just so you know, every time I tell people that our church is going to raise something like $25,000 in a week, because that's what we needed to do, people are like, Matt, that doesn't happen. That won't work. Your ambitions are too high. And I always say the same thing. You just don't know our church. You don't know how passionate our church is for the mission of our church. I'll come back to that in a second. But we were gonna give each student $175, and we were talking about 24 hours before the event, and we're like, inflation's real high, gas is real high, money's short, we should be conservative. So let's raise the number from 175, and we bumped it up to 200 just to make sure kids had everything they wanted. And here's what was so cool. When we told the adult volunteers that were taking kids shopping that day, you get an extra $25. They were high-fiving, shaking their fists, because they're like, we can do so much more with just a little bit more money. And then some of them, not all of them, because they didn't have to do this, but some of them gave the cash back and said, give this to another child. We're just going to pay for this one on our own. I mean, the generosity, and you know this, when generosity starts to flow, it just starts to flow. And there's one cool marker for this whole shopping event that we bought over 100 pairs of shoes for kids a week ago last Saturday. Isn't that a cool thing to see all those shoes come in? I just love that so much. And of course, there was probably 100 coats and 500 pairs of underwear, all those weird numbers. But shoes are a big deal in this day and age, except at least a quality of pair of shoes. Now, let's talk about this interesting thing of time given, because you know this, time sometimes is more valuable than money. Time is a big deal. So we had, when it comes to volunteers, we had 164 volunteers, which again, when I tell people 164 of people show up on a Saturday when there's football games and activities and things to be at, people are just shocked when I say that. That's more than last year. That's 40 more than there was last year, which means this whole idea of serving is a wave that's catching on. And I love this number, which means we are for sure that over 1,000 hours were given a week ago Saturday, just in one day. And again, because time is so valuable and we're such busy people, this is a meaningful thing. But let's talk about the other fun thing. Let's talk about total money given. Again, I asked last year I said last year and this year we had to raise at least $25,000. And I told you, people are like, you're not going to do it. There's no way that can happen. And last year, you all showed what the capacity of our church is, because you gave last year $38,795, which was amazing. And I will say, anytime that you do a big thing like this with the crowd, and you hit a big mark like that, it's always a little nerve-wracking, like what is going to happen next year, and what if we don't keep moving forward? And I cannot wait to show you that number next week. So if you come back next week, I'll show you that number. Or do you guys want to see it this week? You guys want to see it now? Yeah. So the number you all gave was $51,150. Isn't that awesome? That is so cool. Just for a few markers, that is 30% more than you gave last year and $28,175 more than I asked you, or we asked you to give. And if you're wondering, if you're new here because you're thinking, oh, well, this is going to go toward lighting bills and paying for whatever. No, that's all going to the students. And with that extra $28,000 is going to go towards each of the 3 schools in the school at the Goti for shoes and more coats, for much, and just hear this, much needed hygiene products, undergarments for the gals and the guys. It's going to go to providing lunches, because the free lunch program is not as strong as it was last year. And so we're going to make sure kids have good lunches. It may go towards a few heating bills for families. It's just going to make sure kids have the most basic things. The most basic things that your kids just plan on getting every day of the year, that they have those throughout the year. And it's a way we can continue on in this relationship with our schools. Now, again, if you're new here or you're returning and you're wondering, well, why are you doing all this? I mean, you got a big church, it's a cool church, you got all these people come. Why would you worry? In fact, I actually have heard this a couple times, and I won't tell you who from people outside of our church. Why would you do this? Why? And it goes back to something that Timothy was told by the Apostle Paul, that if you've been around, you've heard me read this. Because Paul said to Timothy, command those who are rich in this present world. And you're rich. And again, if you ate well yesterday and if you drove here in a car this morning, you're the richest 5% of people in the whole world, just so you know. To do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. And we want to do this every day of our lives, every week of our lives as a church, but sometimes in the season of the fall, we lean in hard just to remind ourselves what can happen when a church our size pulls together and chases after this dream. Now, with that said, I've invited several of the school representatives from Lincoln View, Crestview, and Van Wert to join me on stage because we have a really cool thing we want to give them. And so I'm just going to move over here and get my envelopes out because Tina said, my wife said, if I mess this up, I'm in really big trouble. So here's the deal, guys. Hey, welcome everybody. So glad that you're all. Hey, will you give it up for these guys? So glad that you're with us. They love you guys, just so you know. They love all of you. So I want to make sure we get this right. So first of all, we know what we do is a drop in the bucket compared to what you guys do. And I said this first service, so this is not new. But we're not taking credit for anything because we had one great Saturday and a lot of good money given. Everybody here knows that. But you guys are in it loving these kids and working with these kids. And let me tell you, what we have found, excuse me, what we have found is what's happening at the schools by these kind of wonderful people is far more than we ever imagined. And I want to remind you that there is this wave of love going on day in and day out by schools and counselors, or school teachers and counselors, that we have been overly impressed with. So we want to help put a little wind in their sails, and we're going to take the extra $28,000 and we're dividing it up amongst the 3 schools so they can provide for these kids throughout the year. And so this is where I got to get this right. Trent, I'm going to give this to you for Crestview. There you are, my friend. I'm Sarah. I'm going to give this to you for Van Wert. And Tanya, I'm going to give this to you for Lincoln View. And we know, we trust you with it. We've talked about how they're going to use it, and we're so excited. And the work that you guys put in to make this possible, and I said this first service, do you know how hard it is to get sizes for that many kids? These guys just went to the mat trying to get sizes and preferences and get them on the bus, and I just want to thank you. So on behalf of Lifehouse Church, we are grateful for you guys and hope this helps. Will you give it up for them one more time? Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? Now, you guys know this, we are not done yet because I want to invite our students and our kids from our student area and our kids world to come in the room because they have been working hard to put together some what we would call food snack boxes. And here they come down the middle aisle. We heard that students at the elementary school and middle school didn't have snacks throughout the day. And so these kids have been packing boxes and boxes and boxes, actually 200 boxes, so we can give them to the schools. Give it up for these kids as they come in the room, would you? Good job, guys. Good job. So while they're coming in, what they just decided is that they needed to make sure if kids get hungry throughout the day, they're not going to go hungry if Lifehouse has anything to say about it. And what's beautiful is what they are learning to do at a young age. And so they've been collecting and packing, and some of them are carrying boxes that weigh more than they weigh right now. So we hope it gets up to the stage, and hopefully no one's dipping into it. This is a lot of kids, isn't it? This is crazy. And there was a whole different batch of kids in the first service. Come on in. Oh, we got a man down. And we're just going to take our time because we are not worried about it. Awesome. You guys are getting tired, aren't you? And this guy's got bunny ears on carrying his box. I love that. Come on. So everybody keep coming on in. Come on in, guys. It's good. Jake, how you doing? Jake, don't open up that box and eat out yourself, okay? Can't do that. That is good. So if anybody would like to volunteer in Kids World, we're going to have a sign-up sheet in just a second because of how awesome they are back there. I'm going to let these adults, you guys can just put them right on the floor is fine. Put them right on the floor. All right, all you young people, students and kids, look up here. Everybody look up here. You look up here. Hey, buddy. Hey. Look up here. Hey. I wanted to thank each and every one of you guys because you are doing a really good thing for other people. And you're learning what it took me a lot longer in life to learn, that it's best to be generous and care about other people. And what you're doing is going to help a whole lot of other people. Now I want you to turn and look out towards all those adults. They're scary, I know. And this is what this adults, on the count of 3, we're going to cheer you on and maybe give you a standing ovation. I'm not sure. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Let's say thank you to these guys. All right. Kids, go back to your environments. It's going to be a whole lot more fun there than in here. So have a good rest of your day. Oh, what a great bunch of kids. This is where the chaos ensues when you have all these young people around. Hey, so while the kids are walking out, I know there's a lot going on. I just want to thank them and our student and kids environments. And I want to thank you guys all one more time. And I just pray the Lord would bless you and keep you and the children and students that you work with this year. One more time, give it up for these school adults. We'll let you guys go when you're ready. Love you all. You know, I am always reminded at these moments that I think I'm the luckiest pastor in the whole world, because I get to work with the most amazing people in the whole world. And again, when people say, your church cannot pull that off, I just always say 2 things. You don't know our church, you don't know our Jesus, because you guys have just proven the things that matter to you. And I am so very grateful. And remember, Be Rich is a season at our church, but it's also a lifestyle that we live in the name of Jesus. Thanks for creating a place that is awesome as this. Hey, we have a sermon series to get to today. We're going to continue with our series, Bad Blood. So look up at the screens and check out this video.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. What are you doing here?
Oh, I'm just waiting for Lucas to get here. You know, it's our 2nd anniversary.
Oh, how great. Oh, I think I should go then.
Oh, no, just stay and talk. I mean, he's always running late anyway, so.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh, hold on 1 second. That's probably him. Oh, yeah. Running late. What are you doing?
What am I doing? Just getting ready for our hot date. Just cleaning up for you.
He says he's cleaning up after me.
What?
I can't believe you.
I can't believe you. Oh, she's impressed that I'm making the effort. Well, just you wait.
Oh, he says, just you wait. But I've been waiting. I've been here for like 45 minutes.
Hurry up. Well, so impatient.
Oh, no. No, that's not gonna work.
Don't bother, I'm coming home. All right.
Spell check gets you every time, I'm saying, every time. Hey, well, we are in part 2 of the series called Bad Blood, and we're talking about difficult relationships. And why this is such a big deal is all of us have difficult relationships in our life. It's part of being human, and we are marching towards the holidays where that can get amplified and amped up. And I just wanted to talk about it a little bit because you know this. When you have bad blood in a relationship, there's stress and there's turmoil and there's angst, and it's not very healthy. And we want to live in the healthiest place in our lives. And what we said last week around this idea is that the quality of our lives, we'll put this up on the screen at some point, the quality of our lives, thank you, is only as good as the quality of our relationships. And we'd all attest to that. When our relationships are in a bad place, even if our finances are good, our health is good, but our relationships are bad, it's a draw on everything because life just goes in a bad direction. We have energy in that direction, anger, our focus goes there, and you just lose the quality of life in this life. Now, last week we found out some really good news that I want you to hang on to as we walk through today's message. And that's simply this, that you and I can have peace about the relationship even without peace in the relationship. That if I take some certain steps, I can have a peace about the relationship until I find peace in the relationship. I'm okay, even though it's not quite all okay yet. But there's a path. There's steps that we have to take. It just doesn't happen because you showed up at church and you said a prayer. And we said last week that the path to peace is paved with empathy. And you all know what empathy is. Empathy is that idea where I feel what you feel. I just don't acknowledge you feel that way, that I actually feel the way you feel. And here's was a key part of last week. When I'm upset with somebody or ticked off at somebody, even if it was all on them, when I'm willing to take the long walk around and look at what's happening from their point of view, I have empathy. The illustration last week is if you're a golfer and you're trying to make a putt, you look at the ball, you look at the hole, and you measure it up. But if you're a good putter, a great putter, you put down your putter and you walk around the other side of the hole and you look at the hole and the ball and you see the ridges and the divots and the contour of the green. And when you see it from that side, often you say, oh, I didn't see that. I see something I didn't understand. I may not agree with it, but I understand it now. What we understand is that in a difficult relationship, empathy. I feel what you feel. I may not agree with it, but I feel what you feel can be the key to opening dialogue that leads to healthy relationships. And last week we just asked you to take one step, just to see from another person's perspective, just to hear and feel where they're coming from. And some of you wrote some stuff down, you talked to a trusted friend, you walked through it with your small group, and it was hard, but we've heard some stories of people taking a positive step in this direction. And when it comes to empathy and seeing from another person's perspective, the simple question is, what does that look like for you? And if you missed last week, we'd love for you to go back and watch the message. But what does it look like you to see from another person's perspective, to feel what they feel? And the question that arose last week that was challenging is, who else is suffering? We're way ahead. Back up, guys. Back up. Back up one more. You guys just took off. Oh, I took off without you, didn't I? This is what happens when let me get back to wherever I was. I'll take a guess and I'll get there. You know what I did yesterday? I was actually up in Michigan and I was speaking to our students at Vertical Reality, which is this big weekend retreat for high school students. And I was so nervous to speak to those high school kids. I thought, I cannot wait to get back to our adults where I'm comfortable, and then I just mess it up. But it also happens when I do too much speaking in a weekend, my mind goes in weird places. All right, what does this look like for you? And for you, it may look like this. Put that picture up if you guys would. There's me, and then there's you, and then there's all this bad blood, all this angst and all that tension when there should be a straight line across, and now I'm disrupted. What does it look like for you to have bad blood in your life? And maybe the question along with that is, who else? Who else is suffering the consequences of your bad blood? And you may say, well, Matt, nobody is. Nobody's suffering the consequences of my bad blood because it's just me and them. But think about it this way. Thanksgiving is coming up and you won't talk to your brother. And you're not going to show up at Thanksgiving because your brother's there. And so you're not going to be there. Maybe now he's not going to be there. And you know who's suffering in the middle of that circumstances? Your mama is. Because all your mama, your sweet 80-year-old mama, all she wants is to have her son or sons around. And your bad blood with your brother is affecting your mama. Or maybe you have bad blood with your ex-wife or ex-husband, and I know they may have done a terrible thing. But you know who's suffering from that bad blood? Your kids probably are, because it comes with you and affects everybody. And it steals joy and it steals peace, because bad blood in relationships is costly and it's complicated. And it costs you peace. It costs you peace, and it complicates all the other relationships in your life. In fact, we will feel this at church sometimes. Someone will have bad blood, maybe with someone else in our church or someone outside of our church, and they'll bring all that to in here. And then now there's other problems and other difficulties, and it spreads like this weird virus, and it costs you the future place that you want to be. It's why we said last week that the path to peace is paved with empathy. Now, here's where this is challenging. And some of you are ahead of me in thinking, last week Matt asked us to have empathy, to feel what another person's feeling. I know what's coming next. Some of you figured this out. And you're like, Matt, this morning, do not say the F word from stage. That's what some of you are thinking, literally. Do not say the F word from stage, because if you do, I'm walking out because it's the bait and switch. But I got to. And it's not the F word you're thinking about. It's the next step in this bad blood process, and it's the word forgiveness. I know some of you are like, is he really going to say the F? No, I'm not saying the F word from stage. But for some of us, this is worse than the worst of words. Because when we think of the word forgiveness, it's just like a gut punch. But forgiveness is the vehicle to move you down the path to wholeness, to go there. And know as we walk through this and we talk through this, this is something that takes time. It may not be something you may wave a magic wand over, a magic prayer over, and everything is fine. And you feel free, as I talk this morning, to hold in your hand what they did is not right. And I'm sure it's not. What they did is wrong. I'm sure it is. But it still asks the question, should I forgive? Without having them come and give me an apology or crawl back to me or get paid back, am I willing to go down this path of restoring my own soul? So I wanted to read you guys some quotes around forgiveness, and I almost didn't, because these are the same quotes we say every time we talk about forgiveness, but they're so good. I wanted to be a little old school churchy, so here's a couple quotes around forgiveness, that when it comes to not forgiving, when you don't forgive, it's like drinking poison, hoping the other person will die. That's what unforgiveness is. Like, I'm gonna take something terrible for myself and hope you get sick. And you all know this. You can have all that angst and anger and have those conversations in your head, and the person you're upset at feels nothing. It doesn't affect them hardly at all, but it's eating you from the inside out and stealing your joy. Another great quote is, forgiveness is refusing to allow that person to have rented space in your head, because that's what it is. That incident just plays over and over again. For me, I'll play that incident in the car when I'm driving by myself, and I always have this great speech where I tell them off, and there's always a crowd clapping at how well I told them off in that moment. Have you ever done that? That's what this is. It's rented space in my head. But I love this last one the most, and I'm praying this for a lot of us today. Forgiveness is setting the prisoner free and finding out the prisoner is you. Because some of the pushback today will be, Matt, I can't set them free. I can't set them free. But what if you're setting you free? And again, today there's no magic wands, there's no magic words, but there's a path as we follow Jesus if you're a Jesus follower. And if you're not, you're invited to come along with us anyway. Now, we'll go back to what drove this last week. It's something the Apostle Paul said when he said, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. If it's possible, which it may not be, we understand that, live at peace with everyone. And the question is, can we go a little further? Can we lean in a little harder? And the Apostle Paul, it's like he knew we would push back to this whole idea of living at peace, and we'd put up our walls around this idea of forgiveness and them coming and asking for forgiveness or begging for forgiveness. And so Paul goes, I know what you're thinking, so here's something to put on top of that. Don't take revenge, my dear friends. And I thought about this. Remember Dr. Evil from the Austin Power movies? Don't be like him. That's what comes to mind. But what really struck my mind is that old Dixie Chick songs, Earl's Gotta Die. You guys know that song? And Earl's Gotta Die. I love that song. And when I watched the music video years ago, I thought, I want to kill Earl too. Let's just all go get Earl and let's put him down for the count. Now, why that's significant is all of us have some form of Earl in our life. We really do. And our reaction is, Earl's got to die. Dad's got to die. Fred's got to die. You know, Susie's got to die. If you're Susie, I don't want you to die. I promise out there. I made that up. But we feel that because revenge is not just an external retaliation, but the internal celebration of their misfortune. Let's just be honest. Most of us, let's hope all of us, are not going to go out and kill Earl, right? We don't have the guts to do that, nor should we. So we're not going to do anything about it, but it's going to be in us. And it's going to dwell there. And then you're going to hear, oh, they got a DUI. That's too bad. And inside, you're like shaking your fist. Way to go, officers of the law. Get them again, right? They lost their job. I'm so sorry. Yes, yes. Their kid flunked out of school. It's that internal celebration. And you know what is stolen when you celebrate ugly things for people? Peace. And let's just be honest. When you celebrate misfortune, it's gross. It's just an ugly thing. It doesn't represent Jesus at all. And look what Paul says. He says this, do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. And some of you are like, that's what I'm talking about, Matt. Bring that to play. I want this. All right, God, if you're going to bring your wrath, let it happen. Now, here's the problem. We don't understand God's wrath the way it's meant to be understood, because often we still think of God as this grandfatherly dude up in heaven with a big old club just waiting to smash us on the head anytime he gets a chance, right? I think when I was growing up, I thought of God and his wrath like my elementary age principal, Mr. Smith. We called him Mr. Big. His name was Ansem Smith. And he was a sweet man, but when he was our principal, he was terrifying. And when you got in trouble in elementary school, and if you're young, you will not believe what I'm about to say. If you got in too much trouble in the classroom, the teacher would open a drawer and pull out a leather strap about this long. Let me just repeat that. A leather strap had a little handle and a piece of leather, and you'd have to hold it in your hands, and you would carry it downstairs to Mr. Big's office. And you would present it to Mr. Big, and you would say, I have to get the strap. That happened in our elementary school. And then our principal, Mr. Smith, would strap you with the strap. I'm not saying we should do that, although we behaved really well in those days because I was terrified of that strap. But that's what I thought God was like. And so when I read this when I was younger, make room for God's wrath, I'm like, get them, principal. Just get after them. Punish them. But you know what's so interesting about this? When God decided to give out all of his wrath, and I hope you always remember this, he emptied out all of his wrath on his own son, Jesus, so you wouldn't have to face it if you believe. And that's the kind of Savior and God we believe in. And the idea is somehow, God, you're in the middle of this and I don't understand what you're doing, but I'm making room for what you're doing, not what I'm going to do. Paul says when it comes to God's wrath, it is mine, God would say, to avenge. I will repay, says the Lord. My job as a follower of Jesus, if you are, is to forgive, have empathy, and say, God, this is hard, watch me. The rest is yours. I'm hurting because I'm trying to hurt them. I don't want to hurt anymore. The rest is yours. And here's the thing. If you're wondering how your life is going with forgiveness, ask the person next to you. Ask the person you're married to and say, is my life better because I'm holding God's wrath in my hands? And they're going to tell you the truth. What if I open it up and let it go and let God deal with it? And what if God did his greatest work in you because you decided to stop trying to take vengeance and waiting for an apology? Because unforgiveness, it shuts God out. And forgiveness, it seems to allow God in and to work. God, I trust you. I'm not paying back. And so I'm relinquishing control of what's already inside me, and it's kind of ugly. Now, this next thing I'm about to say is where the rubber meets the road. Because we say we believe in Jesus. We say we want to live our lives like Jesus. But truthfully, unforgiveness is a failure to believe what God says and Jesus did. It just is. And here's the deal for some of you, the reason you're not a Christian or you're back in church after not being a Christian is you know Christians believe this, that we're to forgive and let go and turn the other cheek. But you know some Christians that there's nothing like forgiveness in their life at all. In fact, it's all wrath, vengeance. And you're like, listen, if you're gonna be such a hypocrite, I don't wanna be part of the church or any church. And followers of Jesus, we've gotta be like our Savior. But what if it changed things? What if it changed you and I? And on the other side, here's what I also believe is God takes care of things. God's not okay with his kids being hurt. He deals with things. And sin always has its own consequences. There's not a person in this room that wouldn't say, yeah, I sinned, whether you call it sin or not, and I had to deal with the consequences. That's just a natural thing of life. That just happens. But let me remind you, God is your defender. And he wants to have freedom, you to have freedom in your life. So let God deal with that. And on the contrary, this is challenging. Paul would say, on the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. Your enemy, that's a hard thing to swallow. Well, Paul, how do I know who my enemy is? It's when you take the long way around and you see if they're hungry. You may not be able to see if they're hungry from your perspective, but when you walk around, you may see something you didn't know. Well, what would they be hungry for? Maybe they're hungry for love, affirmation, attention, forgiveness. Maybe they grew up in a family where dad wasn't around, or somebody hurt them that you don't even know. Maybe there's circumstances you don't know and they're lacking in some area. That's why empathy is such a powerful idea. Then he goes on, he says, if he's thirsty, give him something to drink. And this is the rock stars in our life. When you turn on the television and you hear a story of someone that's been wronged or hurt and they decide to do good and forgive and let go, we all go, that's an amazing person. And then in our own lives, we go, no, I'm not doing that. I want an apology. I want payback. And we acknowledge the amazing people, but we don't always want to be one. But if you're a Jesus follower, he invited us to have that in our lives and what comes with it. This is the beautiful thing, is peace. And in some ways, the most selfish thing you can do is forgive someone because you get the full benefit of peace. And this is the one area in your life that it's okay to be selfish. I'm going to forgive you because I want peace and I want joy. I want to put my head down at night and be able to breathe and not be angry all the time. And Paul goes on, he says, in doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Now this is a little weird, but in ancient Hebrew times, the Old Testament times, when someone wanted to be contrite or repent, they would find a way to put burning coals on their head, and it represented, all right, God, I'm contrite. And somehow Paul is saying, listen, when you love somebody and you feed them and you take care of them and you forgive them, even if they're their enemy, it makes them look up like, okay, I shouldn't be getting this kind of treatment. Or at least takes the obstacle of the anger out of the way. And they look up, and what would happen? Forget your life for a minute. What happened if you love some people that are hard to love in your life, that you have bad blood in? And they looked up and they said, you know what? I have been wrong. I need to turn to God. I need to find Jesus. And kindness brought them to the cross. Because you know this, what made most of us believe, really believe, not is that you're going to hell if you don't believe. And that may have scared us into believing temporarily, but going to hell if you don't believe probably didn't get us there. What got us to a real relationship with Jesus is his kindness, and his generosity, and his love, and the call to be a part of his kingdom. That's why when Jesus went to the cross, and he said that amazing thing, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Forgive them anyway. When I read that in college, it changed my whole life because I knew that's the kind of kindness God had offered me. So the question you have to wrestle to the ground is, what do you do about your bad blood? Here's a step if you're willing to consider it. Accept the apology that you'll never receive. Just go ahead and decide, I may never get an apology from, and just name that person out loud, but I'm gonna accept it anyway. Well, that's letting them off the hook. Yep, it sure is, but it's letting you off the hook more. That's letting the prisoner free. No, it's letting you be free. And it changes everything. It changes the whole game. And you don't have to be fully mature Christian to do this. You just have to have a desire to be free and to be like your Savior. And if you're not a Christian, don't you want to be free? Or do you want to be that person that just walks around and is angry all the time? And this is another challenging one. Give them the blessing they never received. Why do they behave the way they behave? I don't know. Why do they do what they do? I don't know. But maybe they know and they don't want to tell anybody. There's such ugly things that have happened to people in this world. Sometimes we don't have any idea. And we don't know how it affected them. And we get a chance to be Jesus because we can step in and go, listen, I don't know why you're such a jerk or you're so insensitive or you don't call me, but I'm just going to bless you anyway. I'm going to be patient and I'm going to take a slow walk in the same good direction every day of my life and show you mercy. And I'm not losing my joy. I'm not losing my joy because I don't want to be that kind of person. And it's as if the Apostle Paul, he's writing this and he knows the pushback. And so he goes even a little farther and he says, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. And again, if someone has done evil to you, God is never going to go, that's okay. He's never going to say that. He's never going to say it's okay for people to mistreat you or hurt you or sin against you. At the same time, don't be evil back like they were evil to you. And evil is a heart issue. It's not an action issue. It always starts in the heart. You don't have to condone it. You don't have to be okay with it. You don't even have to accept it. But you can let it go and you release it. And you certainly don't have to pay evil with evil. And the direction of your life, it gets better. It gives you a chance to refocus. And you'll be a better spouse. You'll be a better parent. You'll be a better person to your parents. Even if they weren't involved in any of it, other people that you love will receive the benefit of you letting this go. The truth is peace for you, for your family, for your life begins when your demand for payment just comes to an end. And again, I don't think this happens for most people overnight. It's a decision to say, God, I'm forgiving them today. And tomorrow morning you may wake up and go, okay, deep breath. I'm forgiving them this morning again, but I'm releasing the prisoner, which is me. And maybe this is something that you've never thought of because it took me a while to wrap my mind around. Someone may come and give you the most sincere apology and take all the blame, but you know what they'll never be able to do? Make up the time, make up the hurt, make up what they took away. You can't give those things back. Once time is gone, it's gone. So they can't make it up anyway. And would an apology be helpful? I totally think it should be. We'll talk about that next week. But they can't make up the time anyway. So why not just decide, I'm going to go ahead and forgive you. I'm going to go ahead and let go. I'm going to go ahead and bless you some way. Maybe just simply pray for you. Which brings us back to the question we've alluded to. Who do you need to forgive? Who's the who in your life? And again, you probably won't get there all the way today, but who do you need to forgive? And would you be willing to forgive the debt? But more important, forgive the debt. Simply just take the first step, not wait on them. And you may not even need to talk to them or say anything. And in fact, I did not say this first service, but please don't do this. Don't go up to somebody you're really upset with and go, hey, I forgive you. I just wanted you to know that. Don't do that, okay? Because they're going to go like, forgive me for what? And then you're going to start a worse fight and it's going to get worse. Don't do that. The forgiveness is in your heart. It's in your brain. It's in your soul. Write a letter, but don't send it. Again, tell a trusted friend, tell your community group, talk to your dad, talk to your brother, talk to somebody you can trust and start repairing whatever part of that relationship you can. If you can't do any part, just still let it go. And the reason it's important for us to take the first step is, and you know this is a leadership principle, you will never passively find what you don't actively pursue. The truth is, for the most part, good things just don't happen. They happen when we listen and here's a big churchy thing to say, when we obey. We feel God's blessing when we obey God. I know we don't like to talk about the word obey, but there's still a place just, God, I'm gonna obey. Jesus, you're my king and you're my savior, and I'm gonna do it because I know it's what you want me to do. It's not magic, but it's what you want me to do. I wanna take the first step. I want to pursue peace, put this on the screen, and I want to be in this place that I'm chasing after. Now, here's just a fair warning. When you decide to pursue peace in this way, you're going to need to ask God for all of his help. I know when I've had to forgive people, it's taken everything that I have, but I got to look up and say, God, I need help to do this. And then you got to get after it. You got to warrior up. You got to be determined. And I know you guys, you are people that are determined people to get where you want to be in life. This is one of those areas you got to say, God, give me the strength to go for this forgiveness thing and chase after it. To forgive the debt, to take the first step and lean in. It's a huge, huge deal. Now, I had mentioned a few minutes ago that last night I spoke to our high school student ministry up in Michigan. We took them all up for a retreat, and I got to talk about rewriting your story or letting God rewrite your story. And here was the challenge. What it really came down to was, are you willing to ask God to forgive you for the story, part of your life story that you regret or you know wasn't very good, or you're trying to hide from people? It was so interesting to watch these high school kids process through with tears in their eyes, like, can I really let God forgive me? Am I really willing to accept God's forgiveness? It was so interesting to watch as they started to open up their hands and say, all right, God, and we all have this, and I wish I had learned this in high school. Okay, God, I got mess on my hands, and I'm feeling guilty. I feel a little shameful, and I don't want to feel shameful anymore, because there's not a place in God's economy to feel shameful. So God, I'm just gonna accept your forgiveness. And to literally watch the tension of these 15, 16, and 17-year-old students go, God, I'm offering my mess up to you, and feeling like God just started to scoop it out of their life one shovel at a time. It was a different thing for me to be a part of. And I hadn't seen that in a long time in that setting. And I thought about speaking to all of you today, and I thought, well, there it is. That's a thing that we rejoice over. Our biggest win when it comes to Jesus, if we're honest, is that moment where Jesus just went, let me scoop out your mess, put it all on my shoulders and all on my back, and let me carry all your sin and all your shame, because that's what Jesus did on the cross. And to see high school students get that at 16 years old was amazing. The hard part is when there's somebody I have to forgive. Because I love it so much when Jesus forgave me. But when I have to forgive somebody in like, it's not so much fun. But what drives me is Jesus' goodness to me. And if I can give God all my mess, and my mess is heavy and my mess is deep, and when I came to Jesus, it was like, all right, Jesus, you better get a big old truckload to take my stuff off my chest. Then I can start walking towards that to people in my life. And it brings me peace. And it brings me joy. And what I want most for you guys is peace and joy. And here's what I know, and I'll be done. There are some stories that I hear from some of your lives that when you tell me, I think I want to become a God's wrath to the person that hurt you. I know, right? There's some husbands and ex-husbands in this world that when I hear stories, I want to go and I want to throttle them with my bare hands. I do, for you guys. Wouldn't that be great? Lifehouse pastor throttles man in Van Wert County. I feel that for you. I feel that for some of your wives and your kids, and I feel that too. But just remember, when God had every right to throttle you and throttle me, he let his son die for you. And he let his son die for me, for the forgiveness of our sins. Would you be willing this week to pursue forgiveness, which will actually let you pursue peace? I hope so. I pray so. I believe so. Let me pray for you. Jesus, it is much easier for me to talk about this very hard subject than to live out. And I know in this room, there's tension online. There's tension around this idea of, could we really open up our hands and let you take care of it all? I pray you'd give us the strength and the wisdom to walk towards empathy and towards forgiveness and not shy away from trying to deal with bad blood for the sake of our lives and the people's lives that we're a part of that matter to us. And Jesus, ultimately for your kingdom, because as Jesus followers, we are witnesses about you to this entire world. And Jesus, also thank you for a whole bunch of high school kids last night that found forgiveness in you that I pray will last the rest of eternity in their lives. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Guys, thanks for being here. We'll see you next week for part 3 of Bad Blood.